Bases dropped on Soccer's morning show. It is, I guess, TMS on SDH. John here, you there. Standard Wall Pass Wednesday, packed as always. There's a lot of news to get into this morning, and we'll get into some of the more odd news for opening kickoff before Tyler Pilgrim from Scarves and Spikes joins us at 9:15 to take us through hour number one. Hour number two, we'll go through all of the other transfer news that's going on. There's a lot, and there are swaps involved. If you're a fan of Chelsea, you're kind of losing some. Folks want out. It's all over the place, and so we'll get into that. There was basically a swap deal that happened this morning involving Chelsea and Atletico. There's news of stuff going on with Everton, and once again, we always talk about multiple writers on a byline. So our friends at The Guardian have the news that's associated with that, and it's good news if you are the Airborne DJ Tom Russo, Ropes, or other resident Evertonians that are attached to that particular club. It's stable news that we can get into involving Everton when we discuss things between 10 and 10:30. And then at 10:30, Marion Crowder scheduled to join us. Marion was a part of the broadcast team with USL Super League this past weekend, so we'll talk to her about the vibe and Super League and all those kinds of things and get into a little Soccer's in session too. And see what recall is looking like when it comes to the SEC this year. We'll get into that with Marion at 10:30. And then, like I said, Wall Pass Wednesday. Whatever's on your mind, that's what's out there. That's what's going on. Obviously, with Tyler, we'll talk about the dichotomy of press conferences. What happened at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground involving players that are there, players that are there, players that are in, players that are going to be leaving but not yet, all that kind of stuff. And we'll get into the home stretch with Tyler with the matchup coming up this weekend at LAG, and we'll discuss Marco Royce, Galaxy, the rest of the league, Eastern Conference, anticipation, predictions, and obviously since it's on tape, we will have a public record of everything that's discussed coming up with Tyler in just a little bit. And like I said, there's a lot of news overseas to get into. Transfer this, transfer that, player possibly moving, players that want to go, all those kinds of things. So we'll get into that as we wrap up this morning. So full or fullest, that's basically the show that we got this morning here on SDH. Everybody's dialing in early on. Okay. All right. So Abby has a question that we probably need to get into. All right. So she wants to know about the app. All right, so here's what you do, and I'll put it in the chat. You go to Spreaker, and you download that, and then you do a search for SDH, and then you set your notifications because I'm old school. I've never changed it out. I still have the old SDH app from our previous provider. Yeah, it's a Spreaker. It's like speaker with an R in the middle. And then set your notifications. Let me see. Notifications. I guess this is turning into opening kickoff. All right. So go to the Spreaker app. It's like speaker with an R in the middle. Download the Spreaker app. Because it was something that was out of our control when Spreaker changed their providers and things a couple of years ago. The SDH app still does exist for some OGs like me on Android. I don't know if it exists in the overall. And I still do get my notifications. And when programming happens, I still get my notifications. But if you have a problem with the old app, go to Spreaker, download that app, search for SDH, and then set your notifications that way. And then you can do that. No, don't get rid of Twitch. Yeah, I mean, like the app for your phone. Twitch is fine when it comes to getting notifications that way. So Alex gets his notifications on Twitch. I'm just saying specifically with the app. if you are having SDH app issues, then download the Spreaker app and then go that way. Okay, so good. Alex is doing this a lot more sound than I. So here we go. All right, so Alex gets notifications on Twitch. And so it's the Twitch app that you're okay. I thought you were having problems with the SDH app. Okay. So no, Twitch is fine. So Alex says when he opens Twitch, it's the first thing on the screen. And we love that, as a matter of fact. So looks a little different after the update on iOS, but it works. And this is Alex having his part of the conversation. So Abby, dealing with Twitch is an entirely different animal. Okay. So apparently Twitch's new update is being moody. And so we wag our collective finger at Twitch and go, bruh, what are you doing? You're not helping us out. So, but yeah, if you still have, like I said, let me see if I can find my phone here. All right. So my phone is fairly normal. So I'm going to slide through and go to my apps that I have, and legitimately right here, let me see if I can tilt it so it doesn't shine. I still have my SDH app from the days that we had the old provider, and the SDH app still exists. And so I can still go in through the old SDH app and do it that way. But for some, and I have an Android, so that might be the problem too, is that you can dial it in, and I don't have to go through Twitch to get notifications. I'm just waiting for the day when the app itself crashes. I guess it's kind of like the old Viking space probe. It's going through space, and then at some point it's going to run out of juice. I don't know when that's going to be, but yeah, I can still actually dive in through the old app and listen to whatever we do that way. So, but yeah, so Twitch, I wag my finger at you, Twitch, and wonder what you were up to and causing issues early in the morning. So, yeah, and Abby's got an Android. Yeah, no, and I'm right there with you, Abby. Us old school folks, change is not always fun. It's never fun, especially when it's with technology. So, like I said, I wag my finger at you, Twitch, for what you are doing to cause grief and angst among all of our watchers, listeners, and followers. So I wag my collective finger at you and hope that you get your things squared away on both iOS and Android. So, yeah, so apparently Twitch is being moody in its new operations and all that kind of stuff. David says pop-ups odd, Alex. One touch it launches with sound glitches have mostly cleared on Twitch. Okay. I will take the collective word of all of you when it comes to what is going on, what the new issues are, all of that kind of stuff. I'm going to sit back. And like I said, I can tell you what I have on my phone, but I don't know, all the new phones and the apps and everything. And I'm probably jinxing myself sitting there. I've had this phone, I think, for 2 years. And so it is so far okay. But yeah, the new issues with iOS and Android and all these kinds of things, I can't help you. I'm just sitting there and it's like, all right, cool, great. Yes, basically Nix is correct. You kids and your apps. If it wasn't for you meddling kids, we wouldn't have these problems. Great. So SDH has turned into a Scooby-Doo episode. If it wasn't for you meddling kids changing and updating your apps, everything would be fine. I see how this plays. I see you working. WORKIN'. I see you working. Trying to make it frustrating for us old folks. Michael's like, Twitch is not as definitely as seamless as it used to be. Like, I will take your collective word for it. I literally will. Because I'm like, all right, looks good to me. Does it function when I come onto it? Does it work? Yes, it does. Okay, cool. It's like, I'll stay in my lane, you stay in your lane, and we'll all get together fine. But when you mess things up and I don't know how to fix it, then that's when we have a problem. So apparently Twitch is trying to change lanes and not use a blinker. And we know how that ends up with traffic. All right. So much for blowing up opening kickoff. Opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com, ended up being a workshop about the SDH app through Twitch and how to watch it. I'd like to thank our friends at Twitch for driving me crazy early in the morning. That's your QR code for those of you who are watching, however you're watching us, the 280-character app on Twitch, perhaps the new version, maybe the old version, I don't know, and on our YouTubes. Go to Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. You use the QR code when you check out. Use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10%, reinvest it in youth initiatives, youth programs that they have earmarked as cool, as our buddy Carlito says. That's cool. Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. As I sit here and wag my fingers in front of the other QR code that we have from our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps. Over 30 years of experience in the nursing world. If you are chasing after a career in nursing, go to our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps. Hit that QR code there. You click on that, and then they will ask you, hey, how did you hear about us? And you sit there and you go SDH. And then they go, okay, cool. And then everybody's happy. And Alliance Nurse Corps gets feedback. So if you're looking for a career in nursing, that's the QR code for that. All right, past 9:15. It's actually 9:17. And that means that Twitch has troubled me for an entire 12 minutes. Twitch has sidetracked me. Yes, Abby. Congratulations. Well, now we bring in Tyler. So you see the problems that us old folks have to deal with in the morning, Tyler. I can't even get my intro in because of blanking Twitch apparently updating itself and causing issues for folks of a certain vintage. I don't know if you guys have that problem, or maybe maybe since we're on earlier than you, we're setting the table for you. Hey, maybe you should anticipate problems on Twitch for Scarves and Spiked.
This is the sole reason why we have a show at night and not in the morning, because I'm not a morning person, and it would be completely drunken at 9 o'clock in the morning if I was running anything at this time.
You sit there and you point a finger at me like I'm a morning person.
Most people are better morning people than I am. I'm just saying.
Oh, no. No, sir.
It's rough.
Why do you think the size of the cup that I have that involves soda is this large as I promote?
Well, yeah, I mean,
I'm at Stripers today.
If anybody, has ever wondered why I'm usually on my second cup of coffee, by the time I get on here in the morning, it's because I've already been up for a couple of hours and I'm still not up yet.
Well, and that's because you are chasing a younger demographic around the new Pilgrim Casa. That's what you're up to.
Yeah, that is true.
It's like you're chasing young demos that can boost your numbers and all that kind of stuff. No, it's like, hey, I have complete and total respect for those of you who have to get up early in the morning and chase after younger demos within your own household, not outside, on social media or anything. You get my full credit, brother. I mean, I don't know. I'd be probably in a pool of drool over in the corner someplace having to do those kinds of things on a daily basis. So hi.
Howdy.
Oh my God. So I was mentioning before we got sidetracked by the new Twitch and apparently downloads and uploads and new bugs that they fixed. Apparently the dichotomy of the press opportunities that have happened this week at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground, where you got somebody who went on social media and, damn it, said that he is in fact mortal, and it's going to be unless there's an MLS Cup championship and what we can get independent confirmation from Sabalob Janidze that this conversation did in fact happen, that Dax McCarty is going to hang it up after 19 seasons at the end of this season, whenever that is, for Atlanta United. And then you had the Miranchuk introduction. And we found out, and I'm sure that this was a field day for Freihofer and for Jason, finding out about his artists that he completely and totally digs. And so now we know the Miranchuk playlist. So we had an interesting dichotomy, and it's only Wednesday up in Marietta.
I got to get in touch with DJ EU and just see like what that playlist is going to look like, because I'm sure it's going to be on fire.
Oh goodness!
It was funny though, because it was kind of mentioned like what 3 weeks ago, kind of when all this was coming to the forefront about him coming to Atlanta and all.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, yeah, he really loves rap, especially rappers from Atlanta. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then he gets here and names off, a whole handful. But
yeah,
I just thought,
this one, it was not a cheap pop that he was chasing. I mean, this
no.
was legit mentions.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because anybody can be like, Luda.
Yes, yes, I like the
the easy
Luda.
one.
I like the Luda.
However,
see, now you're having me chasing drops already, man. It's like
that's what I come here for.
yeah, it's exactly. Go to your library and find them all out. It's like it's just. I'm sitting here stalling, trying to figure out. So, of course, since it was one of the
Gotta
new,
be ready for it.
no, yeah. See, I mean, it's there, and but no, I mean, this was not a cheap pop. He goes deep into the library, and he's going deep cuts. I mean, literally, he's like 5th album, 6th cut on the B side. So, I mean, it's for Alexei Miranchuk, we have seen the introductory videos of him at practice. And he introduced by Rob Valentino. I don't know if he has made the spray bottle water and cake gauntlet yet for showing up, or maybe the cake gauntlet is just reserved for birthdays. But
yeah, not as much this year.
Yeah, well, when you sometimes you just have to kind of get through the day. I am instantly intrigued with Alexei Miranchuk and how he integrates and what you're anticipating for LAG and how many minutes he gives you and that kind of stuff. And that's the beauty of the transfer window, I guess. You sit there and it's like, okay, we have this new person, and how does he integrate and how many minutes and all this kind of stuff. Obviously, I mean, can he give me 45? Does he get the start? Does he give me 30? Does he come off the bench? I mean, that will be obviously the monitoring before they hop on a plane and head to LA. But looking forward to seeing how Alexei Miranchuk integrates with his new teammates here in town.
He has a lot of variables, I think, kind of going against him in this potential first match, because everybody always talks about how hard it is to play in MLS on the road. Mm-hmm. And you're literally about to travel almost 3,000 miles. It's going to be one of the longest trips that you'll take as an Atlanta United player.
Welcome to Major League Soccer.
Yeah, let's go across the country through 3 time zones. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a tough ask no matter what. But I think the biggest thing is for the coaching staff, if they have to go into this and kind of give him the mindset of you just got to go out and play your game. Like, he can't be burdened, I think, with the thought of you were really the only main transfer in this window, and now it's all on you to save the season. Yeah. He's got to get integrated. He's got to get time. I do think he'll come out and make the team better, but he's still just one guy. He's one player. And it is interesting because I think if this were Pineda's team still, you would almost expect him to maybe be lucky to get 30 minutes at the end of the game because they were so careful, right? Rob chasing, this potential coaching job permanently, and just who Rob is, maybe a little bit more of like a hard charging kind of guy. He may say, hey, you're good. You've had time. You've been training. Go out there and give me a full first half. Let's get us off on the right foot. But I don't know. We'll see. And
this is, when you don't have full screen graphics, you have to rely on math and do it independently. Right. But we knew going into the season, and I mean from the absolute beginning of the season, that the Eastern Conference was going to be a street fight. We knew this. And it is no different right now with the stretch run because, I mean, New England with 2 matches in hand, they can make some hay. And the Langoni purchase for $7 million, he's ready to hit the ground running. We'll see how he integrates when it comes to this weekend and beyond. But right now, 9 through the bottom, 9 through 7, 9 through 15, 7 teams separated by 5 points to get into the play-in round in the Eastern Conference. And then if you were to just take 10 through 15 and pull them to the side, You're talking about the 8-9 right now, as things are. Toronto and Atlanta, you're 8-9. But Atlanta, with a match in hand on Toronto, you take care of business somewhere along the way with a makeup game. You're in the 8, then you're within shouting distance of Orlando. Orlando, traditionally, they kind of do the slow fade going into the playoffs.
Yep.
They can't afford to do a slow fade because of everyone who's chasing. And then, you really, for anybody that's, let's say from the Orlando, from the purple team perspective, you're at 7. You're a win behind Charlotte. You're 4 points behind NYC. And then you get into the B-plus players and the A-plus group that's, 1 through 4. So if you were to just sit there and look at 7, 8, 9, just the realism of 7, 8, and 9 right now, you get hot, you take care of the match in hand, you get to 8, and the purple team is what the purple team is, but you got all these folks behind you. I cannot recall a race to get into the playoffs being as tight as this is with only the handful of matches left that we're seeing this season.
I don't think the Eastern Conference gets enough credit from just like a pure entertainment sporting environment. Like this conference, I mean, we knew it. Like everybody said it going into it, right? It's going to be an absolute, juggernaut of a conference to go through. And you're seeing it, right? This is really the 2/3 point, I think, of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Not mathing fully this morning. But
sounds good. We can round up. We sit there and we go, 25, 34. So 9 over 34. You're 27, 28%
ish, right there,
30%.
But yeah, I mean, you're looking at all the teams below you, right? It's not that they're super bad teams. Chicago, rough. New England has been rough, but I mean, you've seen what New England, they can go kind of on a weird run at any time.
Why, yes, they can.
So it's just, I don't know. It's not easy, right? It's not going to be easy, and it is going to take some digging down deep because the teams above you, like you said, they're not going to just give it to you and drop off. Orlando tends to kind of fall off a little bit near the end of the season. We've seen that with his teams like yearly. It's just a thing that they do. But you still have a lot of ground to cover, and it's 9 games. And some of those games on paper, excuse me, maybe a little bit easier in air quotes,
yes.
But
easier.
You don't have a gimme game in front of you at all.
No. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what you're, yes, as Tyler clears his throat. I mean, as we look at the rest of the schedule, and I know that we're going to be doing some schedule hopping here. Here's what it is for Atlanta United for the remainder of the season. And our best friend, schedule compression, is going to be a part of this as well. And it's odd at points, but you've got schedule compression that's a part of it. You go to LA, which is fine. You're going to Carson, California, and LAG. We'll get to LAG in a minute. Then you come back and you go up 85 to B of A to take on Charlotte. And then your buddy schedule compression comes into play, but not for a while because get this, you get a week off. It's like you play on a weekend, you get a week off in September to start the weekend, to start September off. And then it's Nashville. And then 4 days later, Messi and friends show up. Then 3 matches in a week, you go to Red Bull Arena. So right there, you're looking at team below you that's in the fight with you, team above you, but you don't know what kind of a lineup they would bring in because of midweek weekend. So probably rotated, but, I think Tata Martino has made a deal with someone, like in Damn Yankees or something like that, to have a roster that he has and still end up with points at the end of the day. Then you go to Red Bull. We still don't know what, Emil Forsberg's health is right now and what his recovery track is. Obviously, we're talking like a month down the road. But then after Red Bull, you get a week off, but then you've got to go to Subaru Park to take on Philly. Then you come back, and then in October, it's CF Montreal, who's got their own problems, Joseph Martinez.
Just a little bit.
And then Red Bull come to town, midweek weekend, and then you get another week off before you finish in Central Florida against the purple team. So, I mean, it literally is after LA, the rest of your business is in the Eastern Conference for the remainder of the year. And so the schedule is like, you kind of take the Western Conference game with LAG, you kind of almost have to put it to the side because then everything else is Eastern Conference. And it's like the old cartoon. It's like the old cartoons when you'd have the bar brawl and you just see the puff of smoke and you see fists flying and everything like that. That's what you got here with the rest of the Eastern Conference chasing in once you get past this weekend.
Yeah, Bugs Bunny cartoon for sure all day.
Yes, exactly.
The feet flying out of the window.
Yes.
Yeah, I got you.
Uh-huh.
I can even hear the noise in my head right now. But yeah, it's not easy. I mean, of course, the last thing you want to do is come off of a break, a self-imposed break, but a break. And
they were on a break.
Yes.
Yes. And then play a team like the Galaxy because the Galaxy is good. They have a lot of talent. They're not, they're definitely not the Galaxy team they were last year.
No.
For sure.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of superstar talent. So it's kind of a rough, I think, reintroduction because you got to travel across the country. You have to play a good team. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a hostile environment. They actually do have people that show up to their matches. So it's tough, but you got to, like you said, put that one past you, get back to where it really counts because you can start, making some ground on some teams. That Atlanta-Nashville game is huge. Charlotte also, but Charlotte is away. That's never going to be easy, though you did it last year.
Yeah.
And then it just seems like the universe would just have Atlanta lose that Miami game at home because they shouldn't have won the one earlier in the season.
Bite your tongue.
But it is a home game.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that Messi's going to be there, whatever, but you've done it once.
Whatever. Yes. Exactly.
Do it at home. So it definitely could go either way. The wild card being Marion, who knows what he brings, who knows the kind of dynamic that he changes in the team.
Right.
But I think you're in a position where it's completely in your hands whether or not you have what you would consider a successful season or not, because you can erase a lot of the crap that's happened if you go on a run in these last, I don't want to say 9 games because you got to do something in the playoffs. So we'll say, 11 or 12.
Yeah. So regular season plus playoffs, whatever that number ends up being.
Yep.
Who is in the Tyler Pilgrim spot shadow? And what I mean by that is, traditionally, when you see a broadcast come on the air, there's play-by-play in color, and they go through all of their machinations, and you've got a lineup and, players to watch. So if you and I are in the booth and we roll through the broadcast open, title card over wide, then we say Atlanta United versus insert team here. Players to watch for Atlanta United. When it comes to this stretch run, who are you focusing on? Who is in the Tyler Pilgrim spot shadow for players to watch so Atlanta United achieves the result that they are chasing after here with these remaining games left in the season? Who's in your spot shadow?
Obviously, Marion is the obvious one, so we'll skip that one. I would go with
the Thiago Almada thing where everybody, it's like every week, player to watch, Thiago Almada.
Yeah, or Messi for Miami. Pick somebody else.
Yes.
That's the easy one. That's low-hanging fruit.
Right.
Saba for me. I think Saba has all season. I mean, he's had success and he's worked his rear end off. We know that. If he could just burn a little bit of sage and get his luck just on his side of the line, and some of these, shots off the bar, off the woodwork, some of the unlucky moments he's had where the ball just did not go in the back of the net when it should have. Mm-hmm. If he can have luck, swing his way a little bit, then he would be the player that would, I think, most positively impact this team in the last 9 games, because he's doing 90% of the work right. It's just he's gotten very unlucky throughout the season. So I think he's the big one for me. Because he could be, if things start going his way, he could be a numerical game changer in terms of just his stats and how they contribute to actually getting 3 points as opposed to 1 in some of these games.
let me posit another option here in addition. Left wing in general. Because of what hasn't happened on left wing. No, the offensive output just has not been there this season. So for a place that has had a collective gap in statistics and input, I would say what you can get out of left wing, whatever that looks like. And I mean, in times past, we've seen the attacking midfielder drift into that space and create problems. We've seen Saba flip and find space wherever that is to create issues. If it just so happens that the issue is an issue on the left, as opposed to Saba being in his natural position on the right and having folks twist and those kinds of things, I would venture to say output out of the left side in whatever form that is should be something to look for when it comes to success for Atlanta United in this stretch run.
Yeah, it has to happen. And I think going back to the original spotlight question, it's just who, right? And we mentioned that during the transfer window. If Atlanta didn't get a striker, then you've got to find a left winger that's going to actually give you something consistent. Shande right now is still going to be the guy I think that they default to. He has to be. And because we know that he can do it. He had that moment when he came in where he was on fire. Mm-hmm. And then he's definitely fallen off and just become inconsistent. Yeah. So I think if you're Rob Valentino, I think, yes, that entire position has a spotlight on it. But I think you have to start getting creative. I mean, we've seen Tyler Wolff over there. I would like to see him back over there to where he maybe doesn't have to do anything outside of his style of play. But you've got two guys who, when they are on the pitch, whether it's pretty or not, they're giving you numbers. I think maybe you put Tiare up top and move Rios over to that left wing and just kind of experiment with that, because you now have like I said before, a wild card in Alexi in the midfield, who he's smart. He's also left-footed. That's going to change things up a little bit. So I think, you just have to kind of play around with things, because Daniel Rios and Jamal Tiare don't just have to be interchangeable. They can be on the pitch at the same time.
And as we've discussed with Saba, you sit there, you find the open space. Literally, if you play with one behind the other, and since I don't have a whiteboard here with me, since we can't do whiteboard chronicles, basically if you have, say, striker and then second striker in behind. Oh, there you go. Look at that. See there. Now, where's your dry erase? Where's your dry erase marker?
I got it. Here we go.
Okay. So what you are positing is, say, Daniel Rios and Jamal Tiare on the field at the same time. And so if, say, you have one and then a second striker, like literally one behind the other, and then then have them drift and or slide to whichever place they need to be. So I see. Okay. Seeing that whiteboard chronicles. I liked it. All right. and you run it in the alley. So, I mean, that's I look at left wing, and I know that folks in the Twitch pitch are mentioning the return of Noah Cobb, and along those lines, I would also say the younger talent that has been developed and is playing for Atlanta United. At some point that they are going to bonk. That is always going to be the case. And what I mean by that is for someone who does not run or bike for a living, or watches the Tour de France or any kind of a marathon, there's always that moment where you hit the wall, and it's called bonking, basically. And so you hit that wall, and if it's the first time that you're hitting that wall at that point of a season, that deep in a season, it's about pushing through that wall, knowing that there's more that you can give, and that there's more of you that can help in a situation like this. And so I'm looking at the younger players that Rob has really been impressed with at points this season, as they're learning, they're learning out there in Major League Soccer. getting through that bonk, getting through that wall and pushing through there and being there for the stretch run as well. So the younger talent that's been getting quality minutes, you wonder if, maybe the Leagues Cup break helps prevent bonking and that they'll be okay for the stretch run, or if they get to that wall and then pushing through it. So that would be my second grouping of folks to look at.
Yeah, because they can't afford to bonk at this point. Like, if you had the season I think everybody expected you to have a few months ago, you could probably get away with a bonk or two at this point, but you haven't set yourself up that way to where you can afford to really not perform in any way. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think the young guys, we saw a lot out of them last season, right? You saw Tyler Wolff had a phenomenal season in terms of just like his numbers that he put up. Mm-hmm. And Jay Fortune has definitely come into his own this year. Noah Cobb has come into his own this year. Last year you had guys, that were coming off the bench and they were getting goals. Some are still here, some aren't. There should be a sense of pride among those young guys. Mm-hmm. The Jay Fortunes, the Firminos, like all these guys that are kind of on that edge of being like, a significant minute stealer in the first team.
Look at Noah in episode 2.
Yeah.
Where Noah is the one who's speaking up in the locker room. It's like literally it's Dax and it's Noah. And Noah, who has come up through this system, and he bleeds 5-stripe blood, just as much as anybody because he's come through the system. He ain't taking no ish. And for someone of Noah's age and knowing what Atlanta United means to him specifically, not just, first team minutes or anything, but for Noah to step up and now he'll be back off of his U20 duties. I think that having that, I'll say voice of Atlanta United experience, not necessarily first team experience, first team minutes, but Atlanta United experience. He gets what it means to wear that crest.
It's a source of pride.
Yeah. So, having those younger guys, we've seen Jay Fortune basically take over and have earned the minutes that's there. Noah Cobb, not afraid of anybody and not afraid of anybody twice on Tuesday, and Ephra getting the minutes that he gets and the spot starts that he has. So the younger guys, I think that, to your point, I think that seeing them continue to grow and develop and get more on-the-job training in Major League Soccer, I think is going to be huge as well.
Yeah, because they all can go back after the fact and have something. They have a different bond than the rest of the team does. They're not necessarily, guys that were just traded in. Mm-hmm. I'll always go back to the conversation I had last year in that broom closet in Orlando with Tyler Wolff and Brad Guzan after they played last year, where Tyler Wolff scored that the game tying goal, I think in like the 89th minute or something.
Right.
Pulled out the point, and one of Brad's mentions about Tyler Wolff and all the younger guys on a team like Atlanta was, when you have a team with the aspirations that Atlanta has, they have the money to go out and get extremely good talent from anywhere in the world if they wanted to.
Yeah.
And so it does make it a little more difficult for a Tyler Wolff or a Jay Fortune or a Noah Cobb or any of these guys to truly break through to the first team and earn like a starting spot there, or even get super significant time there, because if there's a deficiency in the roster, especially at certain times, it's easy to just go out and find that free agent or find a trade, whatever, because a little bit more of the reward that you're going to get back out of it for the most part, because you have tons of analytics. And if you're looking at your homegrown talent and they're just not quite there yet, which is not a bad thing because you can't just throw them into the fire all the time. But if you're looking at that talent and they're not quite there yet, then a team like Atlanta has to go out and find somebody, which makes it even harder. So, Brad Guzan mentioned that last year, and it kind of always stuck with me. Now you're in a position where the team could, their season essentially could hinge on what the younger guys do in the minutes that they receive. And at the end of it all, that could be a big, big source of pride amongst, that kind of younger generation, to help say like, hey, we were the hungry ones and we helped push this team at least across the finish line into the playoffs. What happens after that, who knows? But it's not lost on the team that there's a potential that they don't make the playoffs this year. And that's got to be something that they rally behind.
And it will be, it will be part of the Palace intrigue in all of this, where you can't look ahead, but you know that there's a lot of noise coming from behind. And I mean, it's a lot of folks. I mean, it is one of those crowded, 5,000 meter races where, everybody's in that pack on the inside lane, and there's jostling, there's elbows, there's pushing, somebody's going to hop out to lane 3 to try to pass, and it won't work, and they've got to get back in line. I mean, this really is going to shape itself up as a hell of a race to get into the playoffs, where we look at that breakaway group, 1 through 4, basically, and they're going to sort it out amongst themselves. And we'll, talk about that probably here this morning too, just to kind of get what you and the rest of the folks at Scarves and Spikes think about the Eastern Conference. But yeah, literally, this is going to shape itself up to be, this is going to be a nasty fight, and you're going to have to focus on yourself, not scoreboard watch, but scoreboard watch. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, because you have to be aware.
Yeah,
you have to. I mean,
but you can't let it bog you down,
right,
to the point to where you're distracted with the task at hand. And
the easy answer is just go win your games and you're in.
Damn it.
If only that's that easy, guys. Come on. But yeah, I think you have to be aware, especially when the first game that you're playing, I think everybody is looking at it as this is not looking great for Atlanta, just all things considered. But you can't let that set the tone for the rest of the season either. If you go to LA and you lose, whatever, you just got to put that one out. Almost like the Columbus game at the beginning of the season. It felt like it was a preseason game because you had so much time after. You got to, I guess, kind of look at this one the same way. Like, get something out of it if you can, for sure. And you should go with the absolute intention that you're going to get 3 points. But realistically, that's tough. You go and you perform, after that and have a solid amount of points per game, you're in the playoffs.
What did you think about Dax's farewell? I mean, we played it yesterday to lead off the show, but when Dax posted what he posted, what did you think about what Dax said?
I think everybody kind of thought it was coming in some way, right? But as far as what he said and everything, I mean, Dax, we know from talking to him in the locker room and everything else.
Yeah,
very well-spoken guy. Obviously has his own podcast as well. But he's going to be truthful, and he's going to be honest, and he's going to let you know his feelings. And I mean, I think overall this kind of summed up his time in this league. And I guess at the end of the day, to me, it was expected at some point. Maybe a little. I was thinking maybe it'd be a little closer to the end of the season, but I want to say Parkhurst did the same thing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Next time he's on, we'll ask him about hanging up the boots and that kind of a thing. I'll have to write that down. So Parkhurst retirement. So Cap, when you wanted to retire, how did you retire?
I feel like he put a video out. Maybe it was. I'm pretty sure it was like kind of near the end of the summer.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember him getting his standing ovation at the Benz in that last game.
Yeah.
And then they went to the playoffs.
Right.
Anyway.
But, when you look at what Dax has done this season, specifically with Atlanta United, you knew coming in that for him, he was going to come in with a chip on his shoulder, considering how the ending was in Nashville. And I know a lot of folks will sit there and say that he was completely and totally disrespected in Nashville with his ending. And he comes to Atlanta, and I think that those of us who cover the team were thinking he was going to be in that Ozzie Alonso role, where it was going to be, spot starter, come off the bench, give me a couple here, give me a couple there. Give me 20 minutes to close out a match. Give me 30. Give me the veteran experience. Help me out in alternate competitions. And he admitted that was going to be a bit of an adjustment for him, knowing all of the minutes that he's done and all of that he's done in his previous 18 years of a career. It was going to be a different vibe for him to do that coming into the situation here in Atlanta.
Yeah, and he even admitted at the beginning of the season that initially he wasn't getting used as much as he thought he would.
Yeah.
And then I think that picked up immensely. And you did kind of see his effect on the field in I think a similar sense of a guy like Jeff Larentowicz and to a degree Ozzie, but realistically Atlanta fans only got to see Ozzie for 4 games.
Yeah. The role that you anticipated Ozzie being in was what you ended up getting with Dax, I think. So it was basically, in a perfect world, we would have loved to have seen Ozzie do what Dax is doing. And so it was basically Ozzie 2.0 in a healthier environment.
Yeah. And I think you saw it in a lot of ways when he came on the pitch. Things settled down a little bit. And that's what you want out of a good midfielder, especially a good defensive midfielder. They're going to set the tempo. They're going to push when they need to, and they're going to kind of slow everybody down when they need to. Dax was that guy. He was a master of that. And, it's not like he's going right now. We still have some time to see him.
Yeah, we're not kicking dirt on the man.
No.
But it's just,
But it's one of those things, like the number 6 role is probably the most overlooked role on the pitch, I think, from just like a pure entertainment perspective, and somebody that casually watches soccer or even watches it like as a pundit. Sometimes it's just easy to miss like what they do there. But it's such a pivotal role. And Dax, I think, has always been kind of one of the gold standards in MLS on how to do well in that role. And he showed it when he came on. And he's also, to your point earlier about the video, it was Noah Cobb and it was Dax McCarty in that locker room. And that was another aspect of the Ozzie, Jeff Larentowicz, kind of Michael Parkhurst persona that you wanted. You wanted to see that because Brad can only yell so much.
Yes.
He can only yell so much. But you get a guy in there like Dax who he can be kind of the maestro, and that helps build confidence for the young guys. And I think it also helps kind of settle some of the veterans a little bit.
When it comes to the rest of the Eastern Conference, Tyler Pilgrim hanging out with us here from Scarves and Spikes at ATL Pilgrim on the 280 character app. When you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference, we'll start with the breakaway pack. We'll treat this like that Tour de France thing.
All right.
And you look at the Eastern Conference as we get ready for the run in here. That breakaway pack of 1 through 4, we'll take it a brick at a time. You look at that breakaway pack of Miami, Cincinnati 5-back, Columbus 5-back of that, but they've got 2 matches in hand, and then Red Bulls at 41 points. We could even include NYC and Charlotte if you want to be at the bottom of that group. The first chase pack, 38 and 37 points. When you look at, say, 1 through 6, what are you anticipating here for the run-in?
I think Miami and Cincinnati, to me, that's almost too close to call at this point, just because there's so many factors. Columbus, though, by the end of the season, I see them sitting in second. I don't think they're going to just completely overtake that top spot, but I do think they bump into the second place somehow or another. New York the Red Bulls. They're interesting to me because Atlanta has them twice, and we know the history. They finally broke the curse last year in terms of actually beating them in the regular season. But if Atlanta could somehow pull out 2 wins against the Red Bulls, that's massive, because though they are sitting on 41 points right now, that would be 6 points that you would gain, jumping right up behind them, regardless of what happens with NYC, Charlotte, Orlando. So I just think like those are really important matches, and they're ones that we know the rivalry, we know how bitter it can get, but both of these teams have had a ton of turnover, over the past 2 seasons, much less the past few months.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's one where I hope the fans bring it big time at home, and I hope there's a good traveling contingency of fans up to New Jersey for that one, because I just think that one should have like a proper like derby atmosphere.
Just make sure that you get an Uber that doesn't freak out and not figure out where the damn stadium is.
Personal experience.
Personal experience. I've never. Where is this stadium? Red Bull Arena, Harrison, right here, right next to the river. Can't miss it. I've never been there before.
Wow.
Almost getting killed.
That says a lot.
Getting onto the freeway. Yeah. And it's guys like lot 3, and you can see him driving away and everything. It's like, no, come back. You're on the phone with him. And literally the guy, once we finally did get into the car, left-hand turn, story time with John, left-hand turn to get onto the freeway to get us back to Newark and to the hotels. Literally, I swear I had Mr. Magoo as an Uber driver. And he's turning left to go onto the on-ramp to get onto the freeway. He doesn't see the large automobile coming in opposing traffic, heading right toward him as he's going like -8 miles an hour, making the left-hand turn to get onto the freeway. I'm in the back seat. I'm in the back seat of his Uber. I mean, it's like a Ford Explorer, it's, standard pseudo large automobile.
Moving over to the middle back seat and buckling up.
I was already buckled up. I didn't have any choice. I mean, literally, it's like he's making the left, and I'm sitting there, and I'm looking out the window, and I'm going, okay, could you really step this up a bit?
Please.
Can you kind of like move this along? Because those headlights were getting big, man. I mean, it was one of those cars, like a Crown Vic, and it was coming at you like police interceptor speed, and your eyes get really big, and you're looking out, and you're like, okay, I'm going to hang on to the passenger seat in front of me and hope to God he makes the right-hand turn in time. He did. I still have what's left of my hair at the time. It was like, you remember the cartoon Claude the Cat, where the puppy comes in and barks, and the cat just kind of goes straight to the ceiling and
latches on.
And he latches onto the ceiling. That was me.
I bet.
That was me as he's making this left-hand turn. But yes, if anyone is going to Harrison, New Jersey for that road game, make sure your Uber driver has been there before, and he knows the situation, because
that is a spiritual experience up in the New Jersey, New York area, to ride with anybody that drives daily in the New York or New Jersey area, whether it's public transportation or, Uber, Lyft, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That is a new level of fear.
Mm-hmm.
I've never felt before until we did it years ago.
And then I'll give you another level of fear. Taxi driver coming from Newark Airport.
Nope. See, that's that's already rated R for me.
Yeah. Well, and the taxi driver was in one of those police interceptor Crown Vics.
Yep.
And we were going, and I think this was, a matter of fact, I think this was after the game up at Red Bull. And weather being weather, you know how it's, in the Northeast, something happens, then everybody shuts down. Or if weather in the Southeast in the summertime is what it is. I don't know if you've heard this, Tyler, but there are afternoon thunderstorms here in the southeastern United States that kind of grind the busiest airport in the planet to a crawl, if not a complete and total stop.
Yep.
Ground stop at Hartsfield, plus the showers that were going on in the Northeast. So it was a double whammy, and our plane just kept getting pushed back, pushed back, pushed back, pushed back. And then they were like, oh, okay, so yeah, your flight's at 11:30. Okay, great. No, a.m. tomorrow. Well, ish. And so you got to find a hotel. So we find a hotel on the other side of the Meadowlands in East Rutherford. Find a cab to get us to the hotel. Police interceptor, reject, Crown Vic cab.
Hole in the floorboard.
Close. Every warning light on the dash was activated. And the guy is going 78 miles an hour down the freeway, going past the Meadowlands to our hotel. And I'm literally, and they're on my phone, no lie, on my phone, there is a picture of that dashboard with all of the warning lights on it.
I want to see this picture.
The boss was so concerned. And the guy's got the music cranked to 13. I mean, literally, it's 2 more than 11 and 3 more than 10. He was jamming out, taking us to the hotel. And literally, the boss, who is not afraid of anything and drives with the lead foot of lead foots, She is like, hey, can you slow down a bit? That's where we were with all the warning lights on the dash going, the guy jamming out to whatever he was jamming out with. I don't even remember what it was because I was in fear of my life.
Let the bodies hit the floor.
Basically, yes, and it was going to be us if he wasn't going to be careful. He slowed down to like 74.
Oh, thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. 4 miles an hour is going to make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Ugh.
So
Spiritual.
yes, it was a spiritual experience. And so anybody that goes to these road games, please make sure that your transportation is sanctioned and that you're not pulling your hair out when it comes to going to and from the place which you are staying.
But if you do, save all your screaming for the game.
Yes. Vicious rumor. There's going to be somebody on the show tonight that has not been on the show before.
I know. That's I don't know. You want to tell them who it is?
No. I mean, I'm not going to tell them who it is, but I figure what we may do is, if we did this. Go for it.
John Nelson, Mr. OSG Nelson himself.
Yeah.
We're going to be swapping windows here.
Yes, basically.
Be on the show with us tonight, starting at 7.
Bat and lead off tonight,
yep.
And oh my God, I'm frightened. But no, it'll be fun, and we'll probably go over because you know me, the petty flower that I am, always struggling to fill time and not say anything more than a 20
There's
second.
nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh,
we welcome it all.
It'll be fun. Yep. So I am joining the party tonight, and I am looking forward to it. I have not been given the questions ahead of time, so I do not know the answers. This is not 21. Look that up.
Not quite.
Look up quiz show on the YouTubes or on Wikipedia's. This is not quiz show, and Tyler is not Jack Barry. But yeah, so I will be on the nighttime tonight, batting leadoff, and we'll see what kind of trouble that I can get into. Oh my God, what have I gotten myself into?
Hey, you're in it now, so
yes,
let's have fun.
Yep. All right. So for those that have not partaken in the evening show, even though they should have by now, how do folks partake in the evening show so they can watch the Scarves and Spikes version of the Spanish Inquisition? And we know that no one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Easiest place is YouTube. Go to YouTube, Scarves and Spikes, and you'll see it. It'll be on at 7. John's getting on with us just after that. And then we're going to dive in. We'll talk about Atlanta, talk about the LA Galaxy game, and whatever else may pop up in the meantime.
Yeah, the Killer Peas and Marco Royce and Dibs. Yep. Dibs!
Yep.
Give me a break. All right. So as always, my friend, it's great to catch up with you on Wednesdays.
Thank you.
Did I hear a canine in the background at points during the?
You did. You did.
Not that it matters, considering
I must have left the door open.
Now the rowdy man's right here anyway. He's just surveying, and he's security here in Office HD.
Taking out whoever was knocking on something out there.
Exactly. So let's see. So in 9 hours, we're switching roles to where I will be on that side and he'll be on that side. Yep. And we'll be discussing things, and they're going to put me through the ringer, and so it's going to be fun. But now, looking forward to it, my friend. As always, thanks for dropping by and dropping your knowledge on Wednesdays, and we will catch up with you tonight. I will catch up with you tonight, and everyone will be watching and making fun of me being on the other side of the screen.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Deep breath. Get your coffee, and we'll see you soon.
All right. See you.
All right. That's Tyler. I don't know what I'm getting myself into tonight. I legitimately do not know. So, like I said, this is not quiz show. This is not 21. I don't know the questions. And so we'll see what kind of a street fight I turn it into. Like I said, you the comment that I made earlier where in the old cartoons you saw the bar fight and you just see that puff of smoke with feet and fists flying everywhere. That's probably what it's going to be. So I'm on Scarves and Spikes tonight. Bat and lead off a little after 7 o'clock. So I'll be on in the first half hour, and God knows how long we'll go. So we'll see what kind of trouble I can cause. Getting ready for tonight. Okay. Marion Crowder joining us once again, bottom of the hour. And we will go through everything in USL Super League. We'll go through colleges. We'll go through all of the stuff. That's the official term, but looking forward to having Marion back here on the show. Okay, so news that we have. John Textor has an agreement in place over Everton takeover. The agreement is expected by the end of the week. Textor's in Liverpool for further talks with Farhad Moshiri. He's already got that stake in Crystal Palace. Ed Aarons and Will Unwin over at The Guardian. Once again, multiple authors, one byline. In Liverpool to hold further talks with Farhad Moshiri over a proposed takeover. Became the third party to be granted a period of exclusivity by Blue Heaven Holdings, the company that owns Everton, last week after renewing his efforts to purchase a majority stake. Friedkin Group, remember, they bailed out after they had agreed to buy Farhad Moshiri's 94.1% stake, but withdrew over concerns about the legal uncertainties surrounding the £200 million in loans that our friends at 777 Partners gave the club. It's understood that a £200 million loan made to Everton by the Friedkin Group during their attempt to take over the club is due to be repaid. Textor, you'll remember from the Thiago Almada conversations, because of John Textor owning that group of the multi-club model that is Eagle Football Holdings. Lyon, Botafogo, Molenbeek, Crystal Palace. Once again, that's where Thiago Almada is drifting amongst those four, but right now at Botafogo before the proposed move to Lyon. Understood to have arrived in London Tuesday before traveling to Liverpool today to meet with Moshiri. Sources close to the deal anticipating it could be agreed to in the next few days. Terms are the same as in the offer made on the 1st of June in the previous round of bidding. Textor understood to be confident that arranging a financing deal for Bramley Moore Dock, the new stadium, could allow him to delay completing the takeover until as late as January. Potential complication could be the requirement of Textor to sell his 45% share in Eagle Football Group, or Palace, basically, in order to comply with Premier League rules. A bid by Josh Harris and David Blitzer, who already own 18% stakes in Palace for around £100 million, is understood to have been rejected. 3 other investors believed to have expressed an interest in buying Textor's shares, including one from the Middle East and another said to be a sports celebrity-backed group from the United States. Steve Parrish, the Palace chairman, said he would not stand in Textor's way after he paid £87.5 million for a 40% stake in Palace in 21 before extending it to 45% when he bought Lyon a year later. So right now, John Textor in line to swap franchises within the Premier League, but he's got to ditch his 45% stake in Crystal Palace if he's going to buy the full thing of Everton. And once again, don't know how that lays out with Eagle Football Group. Maybe Eagle Football Group is what it is, and it just so happens that you end up with Everton. So that's what you're staring at with John Textor. Manuel Neuer has confirmed his retirement from international football. Chelsea has re-signed Joao Felix. Basically, Chelsea and ATLUTD have a Joao Felix, Conor Gallagher swap deal finally done. So Chelsea reportedly agreed to pay around €50 million for Felix, who previously spent a 6-month loan spell in the second half of 22-23. That deal gives ATLUTD the funds to complete the Gallagher move for a reported €42 million. Transaction was at risk of collapse as recently as last week, according to Anthony Lopopolo over at The Score. Chelsea were reportedly planning to sign ATLUTD striker Samu Amorodion, but switched their focus to Felix after the talks with Amorodion broke down. Gallagher reportedly spent several days waiting in Madrid for the transfer to be finalized, only to return to West London just to kind of kill time, work out, and stay as sharp as possible. Felix is Chelsea's 10th signing of the summer window, bringing the club's total spending above the £200 million mark, according to Transfermarkt. Joao Felix had a couple of sentences to say about how positive it was. And then Gallagher had been captaining Chelsea, routinely selling off homegrown players for 100% profit to fund signings. Chelsea have reportedly spent over $1 billion in the 5 transfer windows since Boli Clearlake bought the team from Roman Abramovich back in May of 2022. So that is the latest there. And let's see, I'm trying to see what other things are out there when it comes to transfers and stuff, because there are some things involving a lot of transfers and who's in and who's out. I did want to talk about the efforts that are going on in the lower divisions in England about not keeping managers. We've already gone three match weeks, and it looks like two clubs have already swapped out managers, and one's already on their third. We'll get into that. Looks like Ilkay Gundogan is coming back to Manchester City on a free, and that that shows, frankly, where Barcelona's finances are right now. And there was a really good deep dive on the ins and the outs of Barca, and really just how strapped they are financially when it comes to any and all of the moves that they would like to make. And it is a list of things that you're going, wow. It is stunning what is out there involving what could be for Barcelona. Getting into the other transfer moves. Hang on just a second. Let me see if I can find my my transfer moves here. Okay, so Palace's bid for Palace have made an offer worth up to £14 million for Wolfsburg's Maxence Lacroix as they step up their attempts to recruit a replacement for Joachim Andersen after accepting a bid of $30 million for the Denmark defender from Fulham. Marco Silva's side had a £20 million offer rejected earlier in the window. We're determined to re-sign the player who spent a season on loan at Craven Cottage during the 2021 season. And so they mentioned Lacroix, which then sets everything in line for Mark Gahey. Decision to allow Anderson to leave creates more questions for Gahey at Crystal Palace. Palace have rejected multiple bids for the defender. Now open talks with Leverkusen over a potential move for Edmund Tapsoba. Newcastle have also been linked with Chelsea's Axel Disasi. Anderson looks set to be joined at Fulham by Sander Berge after Burnley accepted an offer of £25 million for the Norway midfielder. Berge has been earmarked as a replacement for João Palhinha after his move to Bayern Munich. There'll be a test on this later on. Fulham having already signed Emile Smith-Rowe, Georges Cuenca, and Ryan Sessegnon. So there's those moves that are in play. And once again, a lot of this is connecting the dots. Players got to come in before players get to go, all of that. Raheem Sterling seems to be looking for a new home. And I mean that in the sense of he ain't playing. And so now it's a matter of trying to find a place for Raheem Sterling to land. David Ornstein and others have been breaking that one down. Ben Chilwell has been offered to Premier League rivals after being left out of Chelsea's plans from Natasha Everett and Alex Crook over at Talk Sport. Not in the Enzo Maresca's plans at all, left out of the squad against Manchester City. Has already cited the 27-year-old does not fit his playing style. Mark Cucurella is starting there instead. United, meanwhile, currently without Luke Shaw and Tyrell Malacia, so it could be to Manchester United for Ben Chilwell, assessing his options as they go forward. And you've got that move that's apparently on the table involving Ben Chilwell. So we mentioned the Chelsea deal with Joao Felix and the swap. So Brentford, we mentioned, set Vandenberg, or their hope to signing him from Liverpool for £20 million. Vandenberg has been given permission to discuss personal terms with both Brentford and Bayer Leverkusen. Spent the last 5 seasons on loan away from Liverpool after signing with them back in 2019. Arsenal, Nottingham Forest, confident in coming to an agreement over Eddie Nketiah. Gunners are looking for a fee of around £30 million. Don't have any plans to replace Nketiah should he make the move to City ground. Meanwhile, talks ongoing between Arsenal and Real Sociedad for Mikel Merino, who won in the Euros. They also have agreed to sell young forward Charlie Patino to Deportivo La Coruña for £1 million. Wolves in dialogue over Aaron Ramsdale. Arsenal prefer a permanent transfer as opposed to a loan deal. Sterling willing to listen to offers to leave Chelsea after accepting he's not a part of Enzo Maresca's plans. Sterling's been given time off to explore his options after being dropped from Maresca's first team. He is not, he meaning Sterling, not willing to go to Saudi Arabia to play. Juve hold an interest in him, still aiming to force his way back into the England squad after being left out in the Euros. And so Fabrizio Romano has video of Ilkay Gundogan leaving Barcelona on his way to Manchester. And so Manchester was waiting for Gundogan set to sign a one-year deal with an option to go back to the Etihad after being allowed to leave Barca on a free. Emi Martinez has signed a new contract with Aston Villa, keeping him at the club until 2029. Announced the news in front of fans during an event at Villa Park this afternoon. 160 appearances, and he's committed to another 5 years at Aston Villa. Neil Maupay has spoken out on his Everton future, with Marseille showing strong interest. Spent last season on loan at Brentford, final year of his deal at Goodison Park. 1 goal, 2 assists, 32 games. So keep an eye on that. Aston Villa have emerged as a surprise contender to offer Raheem Sterling an escape route. Ben Jacobs from TalkSport says Juve are the team linked repeatedly. Sterling camp hasn't had a direct approach. Now, Villa have lost Diaby, and they wanted Joao Felix. Ben says, not sure it'll gather legs. Very formative. Chelsea hasn't had an approach. Just keep them in the back of the mind, because Villa are going to be really busy in the closing days of the window. So you have that possibly. And we mentioned United and Ben Chilwell as a part of it. We mentioned Conor Gallagher as what's going on. Liverpool apparently stepping up their pursuit of midfielder Adrien Rabiot, currently a free agent after his Juventus deal expired after having rejected the club's offer to extend his terms. L'Equipe claim Manchester United have now dropped their interest. Rabiot, who turns 30 in April, doesn't represent the age profile Liverpool typically go for, with his wage demands another factor. That's from our friends at TalkSport. Darren Bent claimed Jared Branthwaite will leave Everton if they spend another season flirting with relegation. Blackpool, and this was one of the mentioned the managerial moves down here. Blackpool have sacked manager Neil Critchley, having lost both of their opening games of the League One season. How can you lose both of your opening League One games? I thought an opening game was one game. But apparently they've lost their first 2, and they're both opening matches. So Blackpool sacked their manager after their first 2 games and not having scored. And so folks are concerned, naturally, about it if you're a fan of the Tangerines. Not to be outdone, Preston North End has been outscored 7-1, I think, in their first 2 games. They're now on their 3rd manager in the championship. They're at the bottom of the championship. Sacked their first manager after their first match. Caretaker manager quit, and so now they're on their 3rd manager at the bottom of the table in the championship. So you've got that. If you are a fan of the lower divisions, the chaos that is there in the lower divisions, boy, is it there in the lower divisions. So you've already got managers being sacked. You've got managers that are quitting, caretaker managers that are quitting, out the door, the whole thing. Morocco has revealed plans for the world's biggest stadium to host the 2030 World Cup final. A 115,000-seater Grand Stade Hassan II will be the jewel in the crown of the joint World Cup bid for Morocco, Portugal, and Spain. They haven't been to Kyle Field, have they? 115,000. Feel like the SEC just wants to pat Morocco on the back of the head and go, isn't that cute? So apparently 115,000 seats in Casablanca, one of the most high-spec sporting venues on the planet, according to Luke Edwards, designed by Ualalu and Choi, and Populous, said to draw inspiration from the traditional social gathering of Morocco known as a Moussem, with the stadium structure set under a grand tinted roof that emerges as a dramatic intervention in the forested landscape. And so there are pictures and photos and all those kinds of things. So Morocco is serious about the tri-bid in 2030. But 115,000-seat stadium is part of their plan for Morocco, Portugal, and Spain. And keep an eye on that one going forward when we get closer to 2030. Let's see. Yes, Raheem Sterling has been banished to Chelsea's bomb squad along with Ben Chilwell. So So that's what you call it. As I sit there and it's like, okay, that's I've heard of taxi squads in football, but apparently it's the bomb squad it's apparently the bomb squad when it comes to Enzo Maresca and what they're doing at Chelsea at the moment. Other gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Once again, we'll go through all of our sources here because it's another 2 weeks that's left in the window, by the way, overseas. And Enzo Maresca has said, by the way, I'm only working with 21 players and the rest can leave. That's the quote from Enzo Maresca at Chelsea. Insisting his squad is not a mess. I'm not working with 42 players. I'm working with 21 in first team training. It's not a mess like it looks from outside. The other players can even have 20 years contract. It is not my point. I don't care. If I remember correctly, the number of players that were eligible for selection last weekend in the first weekend of the Premier League schedule for 24-25 was 52. Chelsea could have played themselves and still had almost another entire starting 11 available. 2.5 full rosters available for selection leading into the opening weekend of the season going up against Manchester City. And maybe if they played 52 against Manchester City, maybe it would have been 2-1. Maybe they would have gotten a point out of the deal. I don't know. We mentioned Sterling and Chilwell. Maresca says, in this moment, they are training apart. As I said, the situation with both of them is quite clear. There is not any update on the situation. We have a big squad. For me, it's impossible to give everyone minutes, so if they're looking for minutes, probably it is better to leave. And in case they don't leave, they have a contract here. They are Chelsea players. I spoke with Raheem one-on-one the day before City. I explained to him exactly the situation. I didn't see Raheem after the game. He was training apart. I have nothing new to tell him. I was quite clear. Brutal? I don't think so. I try to be honest. I said, I can repeat if it's not clear. Basically, hey, reporter, I'll repeat it for you. Enzo Maresca has no issues to give when it comes to Chelsea right now and that squad and what he wants to do with who is there. He's got his ideas, and he's got 21 dudes in mind out of 52. The rest of you, it literally is that scene at the end of The Secret of My Success with Fred Gwynn as Donald Davenport. Some of you are going to have to go, but some of you have been real helpful, like yourselves, can stay. That's the way this sounds like to me. It's like Enzo Maresca is Donald Davenport at the end of The Secret of My Success. I said I can repeat if it's not clear. I spoke with Raheem before City. I said that he's going to struggle to get minutes. With Chile, I said he's lovely, but he would struggle because of his position. So Enzo Maresca is not taking any ish from anybody. Sterling was one of the first significant signings for Bowley Clearlake. $50 million from City in 22. 3 years left on a deal worth a total of £70 million. Settled in London, doesn't want to move to Saudi Arabia or anywhere else. Looks like they've agreed to a deal on Armando Broja on loan to Ipswich. Still could sign another center back and forward because you've got Joao Felix coming in from ATLUTD. Wesley Fofana left out of the European squad. Broja's looking to make sure that he can get minutes and revive his career at Ipswich. I think that Kieran McKenna will love to have him. Check out your fantasy teams. Deal for Broja is an obligation to buy for up to $30 million if Ipswich avoid relegation in the Prem. Ipswich's 10th signing of the summer and their second permitted domestic loan in addition to Calvin Phillips at City. He would join Delap, Alhamady, and Hurst. Ladapo is expected to leave. Ipswich have also signed 9 other players. Chelsea want to offload Lukaku, Trevor Chalobah, Ben Chilwell, Kepa, Cesare Casade, Lucas Bergstrom, and Georgi Petrovic. The futures of Disasi and Chukwuemeka are unclear. Both have been named in the squad for Thursday's European football tie. Maresca, I'm only working with 21 players. The rest of you can go. So that's what you're staring at right now with Enzo Maresca and Chelsea. It is like, I got mine, and the rest of you can kind of figure it out for yourselves. What do you think that Todd Bowley and Bowley Clearlake are thinking about that? It's like, we spent all this money for all these dudes, and you only want to work with these. Well, yeah. These are the guys I think I can win with. The Athletic, Chelsea may make a late approach to sign Jadon Sancho. Liverpool has submitted an improved £34 million offer for Valencia and the Georgian keeper, Georgi Mamadashvili. PSG have offered United the chance to sign Manuel Ugarte on a season-long loan with an obligation to buy. Barca unwilling to re-sign Joao Cancelo, who's 30, because of his £12 million wage demand. United have agreed to a deal worth about $5 million for Facundo Pellistri to join Panathinaikos. Burnley interested in signing United and Tunisian midfielder Hannibal Mabry. Wolves and Brentford keen on Burnley's Dara O'Shea, but have to pay $15 million to sign the Republic of Ireland defender. Forest set to sign 31-year-old Spanish defender Alex Moreno from Villa on loan with an option to buy. Four-letter paper has Marseille interested in signing Norwich City's 21-year-old England U21 winger Jonathan Rowe. Leverkusen have made contact with Liverpool about a Sepp Vandenberg deal. Red set to demand $25 million. Brentford hope to scupper Xabi Alonso's effort to sign Vandenberg from Liverpool. Manchester United set to sell Scott McTominay to Napoli in order to comply with FFP. That's from Corriere dello Sport. Barcelona want to sign Rafael Leao before the end of the deadline. Villa's Samuel Illing Jr. exploring potential loan options before the window deadline. Endrick will ask to leave Real Madrid on loan in January if he doesn't get sufficient minutes on the pitch. That's from Sport in Spanish. We mentioned Manchester United not giving up hope to sign Jared Branthwaite. Eric Ten Hag is apparently, according to the three-letter paper, shelved plans to let Casemiro leave after being impressed with him in the preseason. And Chelsea preparing that clear out of $200 million with a transfer windfall if they can get it all locked down and figured out with those names that we were talking, because Maresca has his group of 21. That's it. The rest of you, do your thing. Yep, I don't care if they have a 20-year contract. Who's in charge here? Apparently, it's been Enzo Maresca. Enzo Maresca is the man in charge. I've got this covered. Y'all just kind of sit back and watch, and we're cool. Let me check our friends at our buddy David Ornstein real quick before we get into the other topics. Once again, Connor Gallagher in the move. Anderson, Gahey. Manchester City weighing up a move for Kyogo Furuhashi from Celtic. We need to get to Jarrett's comments on that. But Furuhashi to Celtic. Pep Guardiola side aiming to replace Julian Alvarez, who signed to ATLUTD for £82 million, with a player prepared to accept a squad role at the Etihad. Ooh, boy. If you could get Furuhashi in there to be a part of a squad and be a guy that is more than happy to do what you want and just ask, that would be a good pull for Manchester City. That would be a good pull for Manchester City. Let me say hi to everybody. Morning, Harry. Harry actually joined before 9 o'clock Eastern. He was camped out in the green room. So morning, Harry. Morning, Alex. Morning, Abby. Abby had to go to a meeting. Morning, Derek. Abby had a great conversation with Alexi yesterday. Nice guy. Morning, Michael. Let's see. Morning, Derek. Morning, Alex. We were going over all of the app stuff. Let's see. Morning, David. Morning, Nix. It's been a while. Glad you're in this morning. Morning, Michael. Let's see. Trying to see if morning, Wiley. Let's see. Morning, Tommy. Yes, and Tommy will be a part of the Spanish Inquisition for me tonight at Scarves and Spikes at 7 o'clock. And let's see. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else that I missed that is here this morning. Scanning. Yes, we're talking about Nate's false 9, Derek says. Yes, push through the pain. Absolutely. Let's see. Morning, David. Let's see. And Alex, yes. Chelsea. Oh, my Chelsea. Yeah, Michael. Michael is always in the back of my head when I am thinking, when Chelsea news comes to the fore. Because they've spent 1.12 billion pounds on transfers since they walked in the door. And you see what the end result has been so far. And so, yes, Michael is always in the back of my head when I'm having these kinds of discussions. Always in the back of mind. You sit there and it's like, man. But yes, Chelsea, oh my Chelsea, what the hell are you doing? That says it about right with Michael. Yeah, Alex Maresca finished that statement with, I don't care if they have a 20-year contract. Enzo Maresca is like, don't care. Morning, Michael Valverde. Good to have you here with us as well. Do not care. The amount of foxes that Enzo Maresca has, Enzo Maresca has no more foxes left to give. He really, truly does not. Enzo has no foxes. And so you have, man, the rest can leave. I've got 21 players. The rest of you can leave. I mean, that is someone legitimately who is laying down the gauntlet. He is laying down the gauntlet, and he's ready to go. And he's like, yeah, y'all either with me, you're with me or against me. And when Enzo signed up for the gig, basically it was, all right, it's me. It's my way or the highway. And it looks like the highway might involve Ben Chilwell and Raheem Sterling. Okay. It is that time to bring in someone whom we have not had here on the morning show in too long. And when I noticed that she was kind of busy this past weekend, I was like, we've got to have her back. John, what are you doing? You're waiting entirely too long. You have to go ahead and hit the button and invite this person back on the morning show because it's been entirely too long. And for this, we bring back in Marion Crowder. It's been entirely too long, you.
It has, man. What you built that intro up. I feel honored.
Well, but I mean, you've been
it's a long time.
You've been one of the OGs here on the morning show with your time in USL League One and then drifting over to SEC soccer and all this kind of stuff. And so now that the dossier is going sideways and in 3 dimensions and all over the place, we got to have you back. And considering that last weekend it was a timely appearance for the news on the Soccer Planet, I'm like, ooh. And, I text Marion. It's like, hey, what are you up to this week? And she's like, yeah, Wednesday. Okay.
Absolutely. I always have time for you, my man.
Well, we'll get to the SEC part coming up after this. But you were very, very busy with a very cool moment involving U.S. soccer on the whole. You got to see the beginnings of the USL Super League.
Yeah.
What was it like to be there for the grand opening of the department store there where they cut the ribbon, open the doors, everybody goes in, and there's this one photo that has stuck with me, and I guess it was a drone shot of from high above one of the end zones, and you see the Carolina Ascent colors as the sun is setting over the stadium there. What was it like to be a part of the beginnings of the USL Super League?
Well, I'm actually going to bring it back. I don't know if this is the last time we've talked, but if it has, it really has been too long. But I'll bring it back to something of relevance for both of us. Remember Tormenta, the League One final, right?
Yeah.
So that weekend, actually, so obviously, for any kind of final or anything like that, the league's there. We've got personnel, we've got reps. We're all just catching up, and Super League had been mentioned, right? Like Super League was in the works. We are trying to get this thing up and off the ground. So, John, it has been since I saw you in Tormenta. What year was that? Was that 21?
Too long ago.
21 or 22, right? And so to think back to those conversations, to what they thought this could be, and then kind of the question of, okay, how do we make it a reality? How do we make it happen? And then to see all of it actually come to life in such a big way. 3 home openers, 3 sellouts. It was just one of the coolest things to be a part of, because you always start to see this momentum shift, right? And you're like, you hear about it. You're like, oh yeah, soccer's growing, women's sports are growing. It's all growing. But then to actually like witness it firsthand was really a special experience. And, Super League is something that I hold dear to my heart, because I feel like it was exactly what I needed coming out of college as a player. And so now to see the opportunities unfold for so many others, it has just been one of the coolest things.
3 home matches this past weekend, 3 sellouts.
Crazy.
In Charlotte, you had north of 10,000 folks in the building. Yeah. There's some great atmospheric photos from inside American Legion to show.
And their kids.
Uh-huh. And Ascent are going to take me to the poorhouse because of all of the cool jerseys and things that they have. Yeah, I'm going to have to talk to our friend Ashley Osiecki, and it's like, can you cut me a deal here, Ashley, and help me out with this kind of stuff? Otherwise, I'm going to my credit card will be smoking from all of the activity that's there.
If you talk to me, just put in a good word for me, and
I will. Absolutely. You had 10,000 in Charlotte, and you had 5,000 in the other 2 venues. Spokane, where it's growing at the USL League One level. It was growing across the board. So right now, USL Super League is 3 for 3. What did you think about the quality of play that you got to see in the first weekend?
Yeah, I think that we have to remember for this league in particular in its launch, they haven't had a proper preseason, and every team has been kind of on a different timeline. So you talk to teams like DC Power, who they are still bringing in new players, right? They really just got their roster finalized not too long ago. And then you think about some of the teams like Tampa Bay, who have a player like Jordan Listro, who really has had a longer preseason than she's ever had, because she didn't renew her contract. She's been off for probably close to 8 months or so, and that's, in the world of soccer, that's like unheard of, right? And so I think that you could tell that the teams who had been together longer for their entirety of the roster, the players who had really had a full preseason to think about it, versus the teams who truly are still getting to know each other. With that being said, there's also no scouting, right? None of the teams that we called this weekend had scouts available to them. So I think that we saw Super League at its most raw this past weekend. That being said, the Dallas Trinity. So I called the Spokane game. I wasn't on, but I was on the Carolina game, and then I was on the Dallas Trinity and Tampa Bay game. That match through and through, tempo from the first whistle, off the charts, and it lasted as well. And obviously, like we always have to, and this is the same in the college game, this is the same in any early pro league. 90-minute fitness comes a little bit later, right? And so I think that you could tell that there were some fatigued legs, but even that though, the talent, some of the quality that we saw, especially from that Dallas Trinity team, I mean, they're going to be a problem immediately. Here's what I want to see happen, obviously, for the Super League, is that I don't want there to be this gap, right, of the teams who have this world-class roster versus some who are maybe going at it from like a more academy standpoint. And that's what I was most impressed with this weekend, is that although, yes, the rosters were unique in terms of certain construction, they all really followed the same guidelines. They all were like, we need mature players. We need veterans who have been in a pro environment before to show the younger ones how to be here. We need local talent, which I love to see, because when you're talking about a place like DC, you're talking about a place like Tampa, you're talking about a place like Dallas, right? Those are hotbeds, Carolina, hotbeds, right, for women's soccer. Why would you not go get the local talent and also bring in the fan base that comes with that? So I love to see that. And then the third thing was the coaches that we talked to, they put such an emphasis on this winning mentality. We need players who have been in winning locker rooms, whether that's at the ECNO level, whether that's at the college level, or whether that's with, we saw a couple of NWSL Shield winners out there this weekend. So I was super impressed that although every coach had their own unique spin to it, it really seemed like there was this massive understanding that, like, we need stability and we need it right away. And in order to do that and to have success, we need to have boom, boom, boom. So I really think for Super League, like, you're not going to see too big of a gap, at least in this first year, in terms of talent.
Right now, the 8 clubs that are in it in year one, and there's a queue that is outside the ropes, outside the USL Super League, the USL Super League nightclub, where you've got the bouncer and the red tape. There's a line of folks wanting to get in the door when it comes to 2025 and beyond. That is not me. I did not send that email. Carolina, Fort Lauderdale, and there are ties to Atlanta with Tyrone Mears with Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
Tampa Bay, we've had Christina Uncle on the show to talk about everything Tampa Bay Sun. Dallas, Spokane, Brooklyn, and Lexington are the only 2 that were not active in the first weekend.
Mm-hmm.
There are tormented ties to Brooklyn for those that may not know the roster from top to bottom. And then you have DC Power. When you look at these 8 markets, I mean, you're looking at the Carolinas, which we know is a hotbed. You know about South Florida. You know about Central Florida. You're going to get that Alligator Alley. I'm sure the Derby with the Alligator Alley with Fort Lauderdale and Tampa. Dallas, you mentioned, you know about Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Spokane, I think, is underrated because it's in the Pacific Northwest and it's kind of over there, and you don't necessarily get to see it if you're on this side of the Mississippi River.
Sure.
Brooklyn, I think, takes care of the Northeast for you. Lexington. And we had their CEO on last week to discuss everything going on there with Lexington as they're growing, moving from League One to the championship. You have the $200 million facility and the new stadium that's going to be a part of things. And DC, obviously, DC you can't sneeze at there. I mean, you're looking at all of these markets where you have an appreciation for the game in and of itself. You mentioned the talent pool, but I think that in these markets, I think you can really make inroads as evidenced by the 3 sellouts. But I think that you're in places where you can really put a foothold in and make these 8 clubs that anchor for USL Super League going forward.
Completely agree. And what I think is really interesting that I saw this weekend, and I'm really interested in terms of Dallas and how they're going to sort out when they have their home opener. But for the majority, and you just kind of mentioned it, for the majority, there's something intimate about USL. I've always kind of felt like that. There's something intimate about the way that the USL does business, whether it's on the men's side and now we're seeing it on the women's side. The way that they make it the community level, right? Like the grassroots engagement. USL Super League, I noticed this weekend, those intimate stadiums, I think that could be something really special. The reason I point out Dallas is obviously because they're playing in the Cotton Bowl, and that's a little bit of a different story, right? So we'll see what that pans out like. But I go back to that Tampa game, and that stadium that they sold out it's not the biggest stadium, but it is, first of all, it's world class, very, very nice, and it's intimate, and it kind of has this extension of how the USL operates at that grassroots level. That's what the stadium environment felt like. It felt like, you were right there. It felt like you could see everything from everywhere. And then it also kind of creates this buzz, you know what I mean? When you look around and you don't see open seats and you see people standing in the walkways and they're, out at the beer gardens partying, like it creates something about that kind of environment. So to your point, I think that the way that this is structured will be quite unique to follow. And I think there are a lot of things that are going to make the USL Super League unique. One of them being the academy. Pathway, obviously, I don't have to tell you this, but anytime you're trying to make a decision as a 15-year-old of, do I go and commit to a college or do I forego an education to go be a professional? It's a pretty heavy decision, a pretty burdensome decision. And so the Academy for USL Super League also offers a really unique path that I think a lot of players will start to take.
Marion Crowder hanging out with us, very, very busy with USL Super League's debut this past weekend, part of the broadcast crew, and maybe we'll get in a little Soccer's in Session at the tail end of our conversation this time around. And when you do a game in Tampa, you've got to take a water taxi to the stadium. You have
wild,
to.
Huh?
You
Absolutely
have to.
Wild.
And that's the first time I think I've seen anything like that. But anything to draw folks in, even if it's that you sit there and it's like, that's so Raven, that's so Tampa Bay, basically, is to have something like that. When it came to preparation for the matches that you had to call this past weekend, and the fact that they're all available and readily available, whether it's streaming service or what have you, when it came to preparation on your end, what was it like to have to assemble all of this information on all of these clubs and be ready for a debut? Because there's only one chance that a league has for a debut, and you had to be a part of it twice on opening weekend.
Yeah, and I think that was the biggest thing. And don't get me wrong. So, like, obviously, we know as an analyst, play-by-play analyst, prep is a little bit different. At the end of the day, like, it's my job as the analyst to call the 90 minutes that I see. So I think in terms of prep, what we wanted to really make sure was that we got the prep for the league right. And to your point, that's not something that you often have to prep for because you're used to being in these leagues. You know how they work, right? Like when I think SEC women's soccer, other than adding the new teams to the conference, it's the same story, right? But this is something where you wanted to prep and make sure that you understood the values that the league had. You wanted to make sure you understood, obviously, the structure because there is change to the structure. They're playing on the global calendar, which is something we haven't seen in American soccer yet. So you want to be able to talk about that. But you also want to be able to speak to the why behind the buzz, and there is a why. Sometimes I feel like people that they're like, oh, well, it's just catching on. Just because it's catching on and more people are talking about it. I'm like, okay, that's true. But there is structure behind these buzzing things that are going on. And so for USL Super League in particular, there are sets of whether it be money, whether it be stadium pendings, whether it be minimum salary caps, all of those things have been discussed behind closed doors to get us to this point. And so kind of understanding the fact that like, oh, we just hope that it's going to work. No. The structure has been put in place long before this weekend happened. And so to be able to speak to that and then confidently say, this is why we think that it's going to be around for a long time and it's only going to keep getting better. Like we needed to have that information. So to your point about prep, like obviously a lot of players to prep for because we had a ton of professional debuts over the weekend, which was incredible to see. But I think the more important piece of that, at least for me, was just making sure that the prep for the league was there so that we could do it justice. Because we don't want people to watch this and say, oh, yeah, well, are you going to be here in a couple of years? Like, we want you to watch this and know why it will be here for a long time and why there is so much excitement behind it. Because it didn't just happen, right? Like there were hard work and there were conversations and a lot of stuff that went into making sure the structure was behind it all.
Yeah, they just snapped their fingers and a league happened.
I swear sometimes people think that though. They're like, "Oh, look what they churned out," and I'm like, "No, no, guys."
No. This is when you pick up your number 2 Ticonderoga pencil and do your Lee Corso. Not so fast, my friend. It's available on Peacock, and you can rewind it with the
Which
Zone.
is huge.
Yeah, and Peacock is huge. Every game on Peacock. The Zone, YouTube, and the 4-letter, just research your way back. But the streaming services, everything's on Peacock to start things out. Two other folks that I wanted, 2 more questions about USL Super League, and they have to do with individuals before we get into Soccer's in Session in the SEC. You could not, I don't think, at the top of the pyramid, you could not do this without having Amanda and Betsy at the top of the pyramid to help be the voices and the conscience, I guess, of the USL Super League. To see the 2 of them operate the way that they have to get to this point, What has it been like for you to see the two of them at the top of the USL Super League group and administration push everything forward for the league?
There's something, especially because, Amanda was really the one that we had, we had Amanda on interviews and we were seeing her all over social media. And there was something very caretaker-esque about Amanda this past weekend, especially like her interaction with the players, right? How often do you see presidents welcoming teams to their own stadium? She's there before them. She's hugging them. She's pumping them up. She's in the stands with the supporter groups, So it was crazy for me because I've actually never seen a president kind of be that involved and be that passionate so openly. Right. Everyone feels like we have to be so business-like. And don't get me wrong, Amanda's one of the most eloquent speakers I've had the pleasure to talk to. But there was something just very like natural that you could tell this was all coming from a place much deeper than just a business decision, right? Like this was something extremely close to her heart. This was something that you could tell she put all of her time and all of her passion into. And I think that displayed absolutely beautiful throughout the weekend in terms of the answers that she gave us. One of my favorite answers from her on the weekend was, how do you, something along the lines of how you, it's leaving me. Oh, how you know that this is going to be successful for players, right? Like, what does this mean for the players? And her answer was, we have to ask the players, right? Like, I can't tell you what's going to make this a success for them. I have to have conversations with them and I have to be involved with what they want. And so to be able to kind of hear the transparency of like, I don't have all the answers, but through conversations with players, through conversations with owners, through conversations with front office staff, like we are going to figure it out together. So I don't know. I was very impressed with the way that they have handled all of this. And to your point, could not have done this if if all of the league as a whole didn't get out and go talk to these communities, right? Talk to these inaugural teams. And I think that the more that they start to do that, the more we're going to see Super League teams rise up in some of these communities. Because I have like a couple off the top of my head where I'm like, that would be a perfect fit for a Super League team, right? And it's just about I feel like it's just about getting them in front of the right people, hearing what Amanda has to say and the reasonings behind this. And I think that we'll see a whole lot more join us soon.
Okay, so right now that we know the 24-25 clubs, the 25 and beyond clubs right now are listed as Chattanooga, Indy, Jax, Madison, Oakland, Palm Beach. Oh, you want to talk about a Florida derby, an alligator derby when you add Palm Beach.
I know.
And then Phoenix and Tucson for a desert derby there as well. So I mean, those are 8 that are on the books for 2025 and beyond. The markets that you have are outside those 8?
I feel like we need something, and I'm saying this from a women's soccer perspective, one of the states that you always hear about in terms of producing top national talent, youth talent especially, Colorado.
Okay.
Right? I feel like we would do extremely. We obviously already got the Colorado Springs Switchbacks for USL champion in there. They have not saying that they should start a team, but they have an incredible stadium set up there. And I know that community. I know that they have the interest in soccer as a whole. I think just a team in general in kind of that Midwestern area would really, really help us. Because like I'm thinking about like BYU and Utah. Right? Like they have some of the top talent that we see. When you think about Colorado, there's always a handful of Colorado natives on our youth national teams for women. So I very much think that the Midwest has something to offer us, but.
Okay, they could play at Widener Field in beautiful downtown Colorado Springs, Colorado.
I'm going to get messages from the Colorado Springs, like front office stuff, like, what are you doing to us?
What are you doing? You're having us do this. And you're like, look, I'm
sorry now.
I'm looking out for you. It's more dates for the venue, and you got more people who get to hang out there in downtown to see fireworks.
It will also make travel easier, right? Like we've got to think about that. And I think that that's one of the best things that's happened to like USL champion in League One even is just kind of like adding that middle ground. Because from a travel perspective, when you think about teams like Oakland and you think about teams like Phoenix, that's tough, right? That's tough when the majority of your travel is is out to the other coast. So I also think just from like a logistical standpoint, you want to get to the point of maybe having divisions, replicate it like a USL championship. You're going to need that market for sure.
You're going to need those through points, especially if you're trying to make it to Spokane, which is not it is not a direct flight, and it's not an easy hop. It's not a 2-hour drive where you can sit there and go from one end of the planet to go see it in Spokane. It's an easy one. All right, last question about Super League before we get into SEC before I get you in trouble with the real world. If I'm playing USL Super League Fantasy.
Okay. Oh God. Okay.
And it doesn't exist, and I'm probably and folks at
now you're gonna get in trouble.
The USL League office is sitting there going, "Why are we playing fantasy for USL Super League?" Give me, and what I like to do with coaches across different sports is I'll sit there and it's like, okay, when we do an open for a broadcast, you know, you and I are in the booth, title over wide, introducing the game, and there's always that players to watch that's always in the open. After week 1, for someone who will be drifting into Super League starting now because of our conversation,
for sure.
Who would be some of the players to watch for folks who would just be getting acquainted with USL Super League?
Dallas, Ubugagu, gotta go. Sam Meza. Those would be my 2. Okay. I think when you're looking at Dallas and what they did on the weekend, every single time that Sam Meza touched the ball, it was problematic. It was problematic for Tampa. No question about it. For Carolina, got to go Vicky Bruce. I think when you're talking about people who can make something happen, it's her. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter what side of the box it is. Whether it's, she gets the opening goal as a center back, but she was also, that's all everybody's talking about, and rightfully so. I actually thought her performance on the back line was outstanding. If I actually had to give her the woman of the match, it would not be for the goal. It would actually be for her defensive performance. I thought that she was incredible. So early on, I'm going with the 2 Dallas players, Vicky Bruce from Carolina, and dare I get, and this is just, I'm an attacking girl. I don't normally give that much love to the defender, so I feel a little off kilter here. But Ashley Orcus, you've got to have her in your lineup, especially if you're doing fantasy. Ashley Orcus for Tampa was unreal, and Ashley is a player that I'm very comfortable with from Ole Miss, and her time as a 3-time All SEC goalkeeper of the year, which, like, let's be real, that doesn't really happen often.
Yeah.
And then you kind of like had this question, like, where did she go? Right? Like, where does she go? Such a great talent in such a big conference. And now we finally see her back in the States playing professionally, and she did not disappoint. I mean, the only reason, and I'm not taking anything away from Brooke Hendricks, the goal scorer, because that's another center back getting the job done. But the only reason that game ended up in a tie was because of Ashley Orcus's ability to make big time saves that kept it just at a 1-0 deficit. So those would be my top 4. For sure.
All right. So now let's quickly drift into Soccer's in Session here at SDH, where we look at everything in and around college and high school and all this kind of stuff. Soccer's in Session, getting pretty close. And when you look at the SEC, the 30,000-foot view as the schedule is starting to get really hot and heavy with the non-conference stuff, what are you looking at so far from the SEC as the season gets underway?
Well, I've already gotten like plenty of death threats from the SEC coaches on my take from studio show. Not death threats. I'm just kidding. Just kind of like, are you sure about that? Are you sure? I'm like, we'll see. So obviously preseason, right? All we can go on, and we've opened up the season now, and I'm not gonna say it doesn't really count. Obviously it does, but like to me, this is just like an extension of preseason at the moment.
Yep.
And so when we're looking at that, the biggest thing that we can look at is who's returning on your roster, who have you added in the portal. And 30,000-foot view is that Matt Mott, prodigal son, returning home to the SEC, he is making a statement from his portal ads that he got. I believe like 5 of 7, 5 of 6 of them were upperclassmen who had played in the SEC either with him or against him in previous years. So he is not trying to mess around, right? Oklahoma was not where they needed to be last year in the Big 12. So he's going to come back. He's going to make a statement. And then Texas, both Ian Carey and myself picked them to win the regular season. They are returning like 67% of their goals that came from 2 players. And those 2 players also had like 42% of the assists. It's some kind of crazy number like that. My only red flag for Texas is that obviously, and if you guys want to tune in, Mike Watts and I will be bringing you the Texas game this weekend.
There you go.
One of the halftime segments that we'll do is going to be the difference between the Big 12 and the SEC. And so my only red flag for Texas is there's obviously depth to this conference that you guys haven't seen before. Can you compete at the level that we've seen you compete against the level of this talent, weekend in, weekend out? That's my question for Texas. Arkansas, you can never count out absolutely ever. They've actually got some really young players I'm excited to see. That's one of my favorite parts about Arkansas is that they're always going to have 2 or 3 young players that you're like, where in the world did they come from? And then when you're looking at Georgia and South Carolina, right, they're going to be important to note. We got away from the division. So East and West no longer, which is going to be, all the fans are really thankful because we don't have all these crazy scenarios anymore. Yes. But Georgia and South Carolina are still going to be the top teams on that side of the conference. No doubt about it. I think where we need to see some improvement from a 30,000 foot view, you hope that Florida and LSU and Auburn have both improved their strength of schedule this year. I felt like last year they just did not come into conference play prepared enough. They weren't tested as well as they should have been. So hopefully with the increase in strength of schedule, we will see them also improve in the way that they start the conference. And then up in Missouri, Steph, she's gotten some portal kids for sure. But to me, the one that might be the underdog, the one that can cause some chaos could be in Alabama. And I'm talking about Alabama is potentially going to produce the SEC Forward of the Year. If Gianna Paul can have a year, Alabama's going to have a year. And if Alabama can have a year, they can win all kinds of awards like we saw them a couple years ago. And then second to that is going to be Tennessee and Mississippi State. Okay. I know I've just gone about every single team. Tennessee lost a lot of big pieces, but they gained a lot of big pieces. And now they've got impact players at every single line in the attack. And then when you're looking at Mississippi State, I feel like James Armstrong has just been quietly working over there, grabbing people from the portal year in, year out, but he's returning some massive pieces. And this is a Mississippi State team that made national news, last year, a team that has slowly become consistent in the national rankings. And I feel like this year might be the year where they really, really break out and do it big.
All right. So what's your dance card before we catch up with you next week?
So let me check my schedule. So I've got a USL Super League game, the Tampa game on Saturday. Okay. I've also got a USL Championship. Find me on the Las Vegas Lights Indy 11 game with Josh Eastern, my good friend Josh Eastern. That'll be Saturday as well. And then Sunday I will be on the Texas-Iowa game as we welcome Texas to the SEC with their first SEC Network game. It'll be exciting. Me and Mike will be on that one for sure.
No doubt. And today, for those that are listening or watching to anything in the SEC Network, Denver at Texas A&M tonight at 8:00 Eastern on SEC Network Plus. You realize that we did basically a half-hour sprint, and we barely touched the surface.
I know, but I also, you're just gonna have to start putting your hand up and be like, Marion, please stop talking.
No. What this does is it reinforces your golden ticket status of crashing anytime you want to talk about anything you want. And it obviously means that now that you are here, you're going to have to come back every week. You're going to have to come back every week to talk about everything that we've got. So
honestly, I enjoy it because it helps me keep my head on straight. I don't have to tell you when you're covering 19 million leagues, you're like, okay, well, who plays for what again? Remind me. It's almost like you take 3 days off and forget everything you did over the weekend,
Not going to happen. All right. So once you get back out into the real world and catch your breath, I'll text you. We'll figure it out.
For sure.
And we'll set it up as like an actual time
during
the week where you show up to it's like, okay, so regimented, you're going to be on the morning show and it's going to be at this time Eastern. We'll roll from there.
Right. And I'm planning to go purchase, some USL Super League kits. So hopefully I can. Right now I'm repping my little high school team. I got to give them some love. MRA Pats. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And then other than that, I'll come every week in a new kit and we can talk about it.
Now you're just being nasty. You're not playing fair. Marion, go get a cup of coffee. It was great to see you. And we will catch up with you next week. We'll just figure out the win, and we'll talk every single week about Super League and SEC soccer. We'll roll that through. Go get your coffee. We'll catch up soon.
Bye-bye. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Marion Crowder. And, Marion is a house of fire. And the fact that she's going to be doing Super League, USL Championship, and SEC soccer on the weekend. That's why we bring Marion in to talk about the stuff. Okay, it's 11:05. Let me see if I've missed anything before we get out of here today. Let me check with our sources upon sources and see if I've missed anything that is on the table. And let's see what we got. All right. So Forrest optimistic about Eddie Nketiah at about 30. Sevilla in talks to sign Valentin Barco on loan from Brighton. God, it was a great pickup, and they're not using him. No buy option has been discussed. So Valentin Barco, man, that was a great pickup by Brighton. They're not using him, and so it looks like a loan out to Sevilla. Conversation that Ben Jacobs had with Enzo Maresca, and they talked about a bunch of different things. You can catch up with Ben's work over at Gimme Sport, and it was a very, very busy morning there. Real Betis advanced negotiations still on Vitor Roque from Barcelona. And let's see, the picture is out with Joao Felix wearing the Chelsea jersey. Sterling offered to Aston Villa. Okay, I think we're set there. What to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it. Here we go. Soccer on TV. And don't be surprised if there's a lot of stuff going on every single week. All right, so soccer on TV today. Last night you had CONCACAF W Champions Cup going on. Alajuelense got one, then they got a couple, and that one was pretty much over. Libertadores on BN and BN Español. That's Tuesday. Hang on, what is Wednesday? Yes, BN and BN Español. The strongest in Peñarol's at 6. River Plate and Talleres at 8:30. You can get BN, Nuestra Tele, CDO, For the Fans, Teise, Gold TV. Get it at Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. Helps them out at Fanatis, helps you out with your complete and total disregard for the standard leagues of viewing. It's true sicko viewing. Jason got me hooked. I blame him, and it helps us out here as well. Simulcast on BN Español. W Champions Cup on CBS Sports Network at 9. Club America Femenil against Vancouver Whitecaps. Season Pass has the League's Cup semis tonight. Crew Union at 7:30, LAFC and the Rapids at 10. ESPN Plus simulcasting W Champions Cup. Fox Soccer Plus, Central American Cup, if you've got it, 6, 8, and 10. Golazo Network Champions League qualifier at 3. Dinamo Kyiv and Salzburg. USL Championship tonight, Tampa Bay and Detroit at 7:30. Paramount Plus Champions League qualifiers, 4 matches at 3 o'clock. Young Boys Galatasaray, Midtjylland, Slovan Bratislava, Malmo, Sparta Prague, Dinamo Kyiv and Salzburg, and they're also simulcasting Tampa Bay and Detroit in USL Championship and W Champions Cup at 9 o'clock. Heavy show. It was full. Remember, tonight I'm going to be hanging out with Tyler and Tommy and Sid on the Scarves and Spikes program, and I don't know what to expect, and I don't think they do either. So we'll be doing Scarves and Spikes on the YouTubes tonight. I'll be hanging out with them there. Also on the board, once again, all of the stuff that we've been talking about. Great to have Tyler on the show this morning. Great to have Marion on the show to talk about SEC soccer and the week that was in USL Super League, since she was a part of that. So great stuff there involving those two. Back at it again in less than 22. As always, tomorrow, Thursday, we're batting leadoff, getting you all the news that happened from tonight. Talk about it tomorrow. And then the Power Hour with the Fully Loaded with Nino Torres at 10. And then Thursdays with Nico Moreno from Pulso Sports in the Soccer Bar at 10:30. And if you missed it, we caught up with the 2 head coaches at Georgia Southern to find out about what's going on there in the Borough as their seasons are starting off on the men's and women's sides. They've got a doubleheader tomorrow night at Tormenta Stadium as Wofford and Kennesaw State come to town on the men's and women's side. So a doubleheader at Tormenta Stadium tomorrow. Thanks, as always, for all of you guys for coming in. Great conversations, as always, to talk about Atlanta United, to talk about everything going on in the Prem, talk about the transfer window, talk about Miccosukee Police Department and Alligator Alley, and Chelsea and Everton and all of the above. So thanks again, as always, for dropping by. Back at it again in less than 22. Since it's the end of the show, that means I got to whistle us to a close and still try and find the closing music to the Gary Shandling Show. So there's your slide. Here's your music. We're out of here.